Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 7 of our ongoing series where we explore what cards we'd really like to see reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. So if you've been watching the series, you know we've hit all the colors of the color pie. Yesterday we did a special on multicolor cards. Today we're going to look at colorless cards. So that includes artifacts as well as just colorless spells. Now this won't include lands. I'm going to do another video coming up on the lands just because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to mana bases in Modern. So that will be a whole separate video. Quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find some links to our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases through any of those links, a small percentage will come back to help support the channel. I do want to say thank you to everybody who's pre-ordered their Modern Masters booster boxes through those links. That really helps us out so much. I can't even begin to tell you. Thank you so much. And if you haven't pre-ordered yet, there's actually great deals on there. Whether you decide to get them through my links or not, right now you can still get booster boxes of Modern Masters for $180, $185. That is incredible compared to what this product used to be or what Eternal Masters was. So if you're planning on drafting or something like that, I would check that out. Secondly, there's another way to support us, and that's Patreon. There's also links down there for that. And you'll find all our new rewards and goals, including details on how to get yourself an official Heroes and Legends Classic Archangel token like you see on the screen there. So thank you to everyone who's helped us out in both of those capacities. Okay, so let's talk about the cards today. The criteria basically the same as the last couple videos. We'll find cards here that see a lot of Modern play. In some cases they're not super expensive, but we did include them because they're just seeing lots of play, sometimes in multiple decks. And if you think maybe it's another 2 years before they get a reprint, the price on those cards could creep up. And again, this is also a set that's going to have commons and uncommons. It's going to be its own limited format, so why not include cards whenever possible that we can also play with in Modern? That's always nice, I think. Secondly, you'll find cards that are just plain expensive. And some of the cards, I will admit, don't see very much or even in some cases any Modern play currently. But again, we know that Modern Masters sets from the past aren't always just about Modern staples. They're trying to fill out a whole set of Magic in a limited environment, and they have given us some good Commander cards in the past as well as sometimes Legacy cards. So I mentioned a few of those that I wouldn't be upset to see included in the set due to their price tag. So you'll notice the videos in 3 sections just like the last few parts. First off, we're going to look at some key decks and some key cards from those decks. Then we'll look at what I call fringe cards. Those are the cards that probably don't really see a whole lot of Modern play, but maybe they'll show up in the set. And then finally, we'll look at the big staples, the ones that see play in multiple decks. All right, let's start things off with Affinity. Now, Affinity is a huge deck right now. It has been a huge deck pretty much forever. I mean, there's the classic Affinity. There's some variants of it out there. There's some budget builds even of this deck that can be decent. I'm actually playing around with one of those right now on Magic Online, so I'm going to make a video, and they'll probably come out after all the spoilers and stuff for Modern Masters, but I do want to kind of show you what I've been tinkering with there. But let's jump into 7 cards that are in the Affinity deck that I wouldn't mind seeing reprinted. Now, not all these are super expensive cards, but they are seeing lots of play. The first one is a little bit expensive. Arcbound Ravager. This was reprinted in the first Modern Masters, but still, we're $38.42 right now. Cranial Plating was in Modern Masters 2015 as an uncommon. It's only 88 cents, but it does see so much play that if you go too long without this card seeing a reprint, it easily creeps into the $1, $2 range, and you wake up one day and it's a $5 uncommon again. So I wouldn't mind seeing it show up. Midnight, $1.70 for an uncommon. Again, that's starting to get up there pretty high for an uncommon, and it's just another card that could actually be kind of fun just to include maybe in certain limited formats too. Ornithopter, now honestly this one probably doesn't really need a reprint. I just threw it down here because it's just extremely popular in this archetype right now. Only 32 cents, but of course it was just reprinted in Ether Revolt. 3 other cards, Signal Pest, 87 cents. Again, not super expensive, but just seeing tons of play. Springleaf Drum, 99 cents if you want the Lorwyn version, but it also did get reprinted in the Theros block. And then finally, one of the more expensive cards again, Steel Overseer, $11.42 from Magic 2011. This did see a reprint in the Commander product recently, but even so, it's still kind of expensive. Dimir Control. Not a deck you see a whole lot of currently in the meta, but one card I did want to feature from it was Sword of Feast and Famine, which does see play in that particular build. $19.35. Over the course of the video, don't worry, you'll see the other 4 swords too. Next is Esper Control. There's a few different versions of this deck out there, one of which in particular does run Sword of the Meek, so it's a $10 uncommon at this point from Future Sight. $10.06. Love to see this get reprinted. Esper Mill, another deck that doesn't show up a whole lot in the current meta, but I find it kind of interesting. And a unique card from that deck is Mesmeric Orb. $10.45. This one's from the original Mirrodin. Gruul Ramp, another deck that, okay, isn't super hot right now, but it is an excuse to talk about this card, Chroma's Memorial. This was reprinted in Magic 2013, but even so, $14.20 right now. Lantern Control. Okay, now this is a more popular one. This deck did really well this past weekend. Did want to focus on one card from it, and that is Crucible of Worlds. 10th edition version at $55.39 right now. Now, this is interesting because for so long, a lot of people consider this maybe more of a legacy or vintage card, but it really has found a solid home in the Lantern Control deck, and it really has become a modern card. The only thing I worry about is when they designed this set, who knows, a year and a half ago, Crucible maybe was thought of more as a legacy card or a vintage card. So there's a good chance that maybe it doesn't show up here. Maybe we see it in Eternal Masters in the future, which would be too bad because this really needs a reprint. Mono Blue Extra Turns. Featured card from there. Extra Planar Lens. Another one of those old Mirrodin cards. $12.89. Mono Red Eldrazi. Again, another deck you don't see a whole lot of, but an excuse to talk about one of the cards here, and it's Eldrazi Conscription. Never saw a reprint from Rise of the Eldrazi, $11.15 at this point. Rakdos Control, another deck that's not a huge part of the field, but some of these decks, honestly, yes, I'm using as an excuse to talk about individual cards, and in this case, it's Coalition Relic. $12.95. Great card. Awesome commander card. And I would love to see this thing get reprinted in just a better capacity. It was reprinted recently in one of the commander decks, but I'd like to see it show up in like all 5 of the commander decks maybe next year, or Modern Masters would be a good place too. Scape Shift. Now there's a lot of variants to Scape Shift, but at least for today's purposes, I just want to call out one card. And it's Platinum Imperium. $19.16 from Scars of Mirrodin, has yet to see a reprint. Teamer Control. The card I wanted to talk about from here was Vidalcan Shackles. $13.26. This was reprinted in the first Modern Masters. We did not see it return, however, in Modern Masters 2015. Next, we got Tron decks, and again, I know there's different variants of these decks. For our purposes today, I just combined them under one header just to speed things along a little bit. 7 different cards I wanted to talk about. First off, All Is Dust, great board sweep for those Tron decks, $10.35. It did see a reprint in Modern Masters 2015. Basilisk Collar, $23.89 from Worldwake. This card has spiked really hard recently due to a new version of Tron that's come out, the Eldrazi Tron deck. And this card combos with cards like Endbringer and Walking Ballista. Very, very powerful effect. Problem is, when they designed the set, probably wasn't on the radar. So if it shows up, it's more likely just to be a happy coincidence, but it would be kind of nice to get a reprint. Expedition Map, a card that did show up again in Modern Masters 2015 as an uncommon. Still $2.03 though. Karn Liberated, one of the big cards when you think of Tron. It was in Modern Masters 2015, but it's still $52.65 right now. Tron is just very popular in the meta. And the last 3 cards I wanted to talk about in this category, Mycosynth Lattice at $28.50 from Darksteel. This is in Gruultron decks, even though you think of this card as more of a commander card. And I mentioned the Gruultron build yesterday. It probably should have been a little more clear. I think it caused some confusion, but basically the way it works is it's a ramp Gruul Tron deck at heart, but it lets you cast Nicol Bolas Planeswalker by using cards like this as well as Oath of Nissa. So it just has an extra twist to it. The next one, Oblivion Stone, $21.25, another great way to control the board in Tron. And finally, another one of those key creatures, Wormcoil Engine at $15. This did see a reprint in the Commander product in 2014 in one of the decks, but again, still $15. Next, let's move on to Fringe cards. Now, again, these are cards that see little to no modern play at this point. Some of these are more commander cards than anything. There's a few cards on here that maybe used to see modern play, but just currently aren't hot in the meta. So those are cards that maybe have a better chance of seeing a reprint. First, we have Blightsteel Colossus at $27.59. It would be great to get a reprint of this card, but quite honestly, I mean, first off, it's really not a modern card. It's good in other formats. It has an infect ability as well, which could hold it back. I don't know if they would just throw this in unless they were doing some sort of infect theme in the set, and I don't know if we'll see that. I think infect is very hard to balance in a limited environment. I don't think they want to mess that up or risk it, so I don't know if we'll realistically see this one. Cloudstone Curio, $10.19. Again, more of a commander card here, but it has broken the $10 mark. It's just an interesting card to mention. Contagion Engine, $10.15. You think more of commander, obviously, when you think of this card, but I do think this could be a really interesting limited card, especially with some planeswalkers or maybe a +1/+1 counter theme or something like that. Gauntlet of Power, $15.10. Another good commander card. This one we know is on Wizards' radar because it did show up as a masterpiece recently, so I don't know, maybe it could show up here. Gilded Lotus, $9.65. This was reprinted in Magic 2013. Not a card you're seeing really show up in any place in Modern currently, but again, another strong card that does have other homes. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Now, we're going to talk about the 3 Eldrazi Titans today. One of them still sees play, actually, quite regularly in Modern. The other 2 have kind of fallen off, and this is one that's fallen off. This was in Modern Masters 2015. Kozilek's up to 21.28 right now, so there's some value to be had here. But this used to be a Tron card that kind of got replaced by other newer stuff that's come in, like Ugin, for example. Microsynth Golem, $12.89. Again, probably not really a modern card unless you're looking for a way to replace, say, Arcbound Ravager in a budget build of Affinity or something like that. Painter's Servant, $14.39. One of my favorite cards. It's from Shadowmoor. Problem with this card is currently not seeing a lot of modern play. Now, we had Eldrazi Winter a few months back, of course, those of you who remember that. And this was one of the options for a sideboard card that could at least slow that deck down a little bit. Of course, once Eye of Ugin was banned, that deck started to fade away a little bit and it evolved into something else. This card truly doesn't really do anything anymore in Modern for us. It's a great legacy card, combos with Grindstone there. So just because of that and its price tag, I wouldn't mind seeing it show up if they're looking to give us something interesting in the limited game. Scarecrow, $11.66. Here's an Eventide rare, again from that same block. And again, this is more of a commander card, but I do think it's a good limited card if you have a strong artifact theme behind it. Staff of Domination, $18.61. Granted, you kind of think of things like Vintage, Shop Stack, stuff like that. When you think of this card, it's a great cube card. Not really modern, but I wouldn't mind seeing it reprinted. Next, we have Sword of Body and Mind, $11.40. I don't think we'll see this one, quite honestly. If you've ever played with this in Limited, like in a cube or something, it just wrecks, right? Because it just mills 40-card decks just so quickly. It's a really fun card when you have it and your opponent can't do anything with it. I mean, it's pretty much game. But because of that, I don't really see it showing up because I think it's just so strong in the Limited game. It's really hard to balance. Sword of Fire and Ice. This was reprinted in the first Modern Masters, but not the second one. $47.99. Now, back in that time period, it was seeing a little bit of modern play. Right now, at least currently at the time of recording, it's not in any of the competitive deck lists. However, that could change. I mean, this is a great card, and as the meta shifts, at some point someone could be looking for this card again. Wouldn't be shocked, actually, to see this as a reprint, just because when you think of the Sword cycle, this is probably the most popular one. Sword of War and Peace, $14.25. Again, another one that's really good. Right now, it just happens to be on the shelf. Thorn of Amethyst, $15.90 from Lorwyn. This is a card that has seen some sideboard play in the past. Right now, it seems to be relegated to other formats. Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. Alright, here's another one of those Titans, $15.99. Showed up in Modern Masters 2015. Again, kind of has been outclassed by other cards most recently. Again, this was in some Tron decks and some other builds in the past. Currently, we're not seeing it so much. Alright, let's look at the staples. Now, these are the cards that, at least currently, as of the time of recording, are seeing a lot of play in multiple decks. First one, Aether Vial. Great for any type of tribal deck. $39.37. I mean, when you think of this card, you probably think Merfolk, but it is in other places too. Batterskull, $15.98. Just a real effective beater, showing up in a lot of different decks right now. Chalice of the Void. Okay, this one spiked recently. $63.48 for the Modern Masters version of this card. It was not reprinted in Modern Masters 2015. This one desperately could use a reprint. Sees a lot of play in Legacy as well as Modern. It's restricted in Vintage. It's so great there. But really that restriction was based around the fact that they wanted players to be able to play more freely with their Moxes and their Lotus and that type of stuff. But aside from all that, desperately needs a reprint. We saw this thing because it's included in so many sideboards. It really spiked hard, especially as people were trying to prepare for the fear that Pure Steel Paladin might all of a sudden become much stronger. That hasn't happened, at least not yet, and because of that, this card is starting to come back down a little bit, but still, it's not going to go below, I'd say, $55. This is a very strong card. Emrakul, the Eon's Torn. All right, here's the Titan that made it, $37.99. Still seeing play in a number of different decks, including Tron. Engineered Explosives. This is a fantastic sideboard card. Again, this is a Modern Masters card that was not in Modern Masters 2015, 5124, just showing up in sideboards all over the place. Ensnaring Bridge, $39.87. This one just snuck into Modern in 8th edition, and it has been a card that people have discovered really within the last, I'd say, 6 months to a year as just being a nice card to complement a control strategy, and it's shown up in a lot of places. Grafdigger's Cage, $10.46. Fantastic sideboard card against Graveyard Shenanigans, and it's a Dark Ascension card, so it would feature one of the new sets to Modern Masters. Mishra's Bauble from Cold Snap, $21.12. For an uncommon, I mean, this is just ridiculous at this point. This card needs a reprint desperately, showing up in numerous decks right now in Modern. Mox Opal, $53. This was in Modern Masters 2015. Now, Mox Opal, just so many places you can play it. I mean, Affinity, think of right off the bat, Lantern Control. There's a lot of folks brewing recently with that Pure Steel Paladin deck. It's great in that deck if you're going that direction. And even if that deck doesn't pan out, it doesn't matter because this card is just still awesome in so many places. And that includes other formats too. Relic of Progenitus. This was in the first Modern Masters, but not the second one. $2.04. It was an uncommon there. In the past, it actually was a common, but still $2. Wouldn't mind seeing it show up again. Spellskite. This was in Modern Masters 2015, $20.34 for that copy. Now, you could argue the card was maybe a little better in Modern back before Splinter Twin got banned because it was a great foil to that card. However, it's still awesome. It's still seeing a lot of play. Sword of Light and Shadow. Now, this is a sword, at least currently, that's getting the most play, $31.68. Now, these kind of come and go and swing through, but this is, of course, the last sword in the cycle. So, having said that, those are the artifacts and the colorless spells that I wouldn't mind seeing show up in Modern Masters 2017 edition. Now, granted, I know they won't all be there. In fact, probably a really small percentage of what we talked about could possibly show up in the set. But these are things that, if any of these cards showed up, I wouldn't be upset to see them. I feel like they add value to the set in different capacities. Some of them, yes, are modern staples. Some are maybe more commander cards. Some are more modern fringe cards. But at the same time, these are all cards that I think could be fun in a limited environment. They could be cards you can find useful outside of limited. And at the same time, they bring value to a set that's charging you $10 per pack MSRP. Having said that, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.